Okay, cool. So I'm here with Ocean Reed for the cat site, and we're talking about his Broadblue 38 that he sails with his family. So, Ocean, can you tell me a little bit about yourself and your family and your boat?
We are a UK family from England, sailing a cat, a BB-38, and expanding our journey. We've done 10 years living in a kind of a tidal estuary of the south coast of England, and it's been really nice. Our babies were born there, and now they're 4 and 7, and we're ready for a bigger adventure. So we're expanding our zone, if you like, and sailing out into the sea.
What kind of boats did you have before the Broadblue?
They were very much projects. They were very much houseboats. We had a 7 class sailing yacht, which was way past saving. An old ship's lifeboat, which was probably way past saving. Projects that you could make comfortable, but you wouldn't take out to sea. Definitely not with a baby on board. So you probably know the score on that one.
Yeah, yeah. So how did you find your current boat? What's its name, by the way? And what made you choose it?
Well, we inherited the name. The name is Spirit, SV Spirit. The name came with the boat, and we just had that weird, is it unlucky feeling, so we stuck with it. And it's kind of cute. We've only seen one other Spirit, and you get too carried away with your boat names. You've got to announce it on the radio, and then you sound like an absolute fool. So, Spirit's nice. It's quirky and cute.
It's good. So what made you choose Spirit?
We were looking at a family sailing boat, so we weren't about adrenaline. We were trying to get as much comfort as possible for the smallest and most affordable amount of money really possible. So we started looking really before pandemic at boats in Europe, ex-charter, and they were never quite right, and we couldn't get the right information. Every time I asked a question, I never felt like I got a straight answer from some of the brokers in Europe. And as the pandemic kind of came in, it wasn't the right time to start flying about. And we changed our search really to a different boat manufacturer. And we started to look more in the UK, and it brought us back to Broadblue. And some of the features of it really, we discovered as you do on the go. We kind of, there's two of these BB-38s, and one sold very quickly. I think as we got in touch on it, it pretty much sold. And the remaining one was literally 100 yards away. And we got on board for a viewing. And rather randomly, there was another YouTube channel which you've also interviewed, World Town in, and they were looking at the same boat. In fact, further along the road, buying the same boat, and they were doing, the viewings, the sea trials, the surveys, and it was just, it couldn't have been at a better time. So we were watching their channel, going, right, brilliant, go look at this boat again, tell us more about this boat. And it was brilliant insight. So by the time we actually saw it, and by the time we'd offered and sea trial, we just felt like we knew the boat inside out, and it felt good for 2 young children, loads of space up top, don't have to send them down below if it gets a little bit uncivilized out at sea. It felt like the right space for family.
And how has that worked out? Has it been the right boat? How long have you been aboard?
Um, so it's only been 2 or 3 years really, during the process of acquiring, buying, and getting it to a place where we could work on it. It was a pretty functional boat anyway. It had some minor kind of engine defects and a few expenses to cover, dead batteries and all that malarkey. Um, but it came together quite quickly. So we're probably down to, for our part, upgrading a few older navigation things and getting some AIS safety equipment, obviously. But pretty quickly, it felt like a good boat for us. The space really worked, and the enclosures, the bimini space, and definitely the salon was brilliant for the kids. They can always see, but they're always protected. And you'd need some real rough weather before you start kind of attaching loads of leashes and things to people. So it felt good.
Tell me a little bit about your family. Who is aboard the boat?
So we've got my little boy River. Um, he's 4 now. He's a bit crazy, and so partially the boat was a little bit of containment for him because he's a little bit unpredictable. He's calmed down now. He knows if it's a little bit, if the weather's getting a bit bad at sea, he knows he just goes to bed, and that's fine. Can't get injured. He sleeps and he gets up when it's less rolly. My little girl Indy, she's 7 now. She's actually starting to get interested in taking part in kind of being crew, really, which is nice. Because between myself and my wife Natalie, one person always has to be with the kids because the kids are young. We can't just leave them to roam. They always need stuff. They're young, which makes us a crew of 4. But when we're sailing, a single-handed sailor, and this is where the boat's really worked out. Basically, I can do most things from the cockpit, and the way the rigging is set, you can really furl the jib in and out, and it's quite a quick response and quite a safe way to kind of keep the boat under control and depower really quickly if you need it. So I'm pretty happy with the boat, really. Most of the kids love the boat beds. That's the main thing.
That's important.
Yeah.
That is really important. Well, talk to me a little bit more about sailing the boat then. Did you have much sailing experience prior? So can you compare it to other boats?
I've sailed with friends. I've got past experiences going all the way back to lasers and little keel boats and stuff like that. And then there's been a huge gap.
Right.
And then I kind of came back to it that I wanted to. I'd kind of had my 10 years on water. I felt like, coming home I was at the entrance to the sea, but not going out to sea. And it started to feel like that. So it brought me back to sailing again, which has been nice. But mostly it was keel and monohull experience. So catamarans are new to me, to all of us, actually.
So the Broadblue is unique. It's got a very different rig than most boats. For people who don't know, the mast is set fairly far back, so it's got a small main and it's got a very large jib. So tell me about sailing that. What have you learned from that rig? So it sounds like you and the boat are learning each other together. So tell us how that's been.
As kind of a single-handed sailor. So my wife Natalie, she's learning and she's in and out, but she's kind of occupied with the kids. And if the kids do sleep, she can come get involved. But mostly I need to know I can depower quite quickly. And this is where the kind of large jib comes in. So if you are going out and you're a little bit more uncomfortable than you're going to be, we don't go out anything crazy. We're in that 10 to 16, 17 miles per hour kind of zone. That's our kind of comfort within this vessel. We've gone a bit above and we learned that it wasn't our comfort level and we brought it down again sensibly. But the weighting towards the jib is brilliant for me because I can know if I pretty much don't need the main because I can't tidy it up quick enough by myself. I can use the jib, I can furl it out 50%. That'll probably give me enough power to go where I want to go. I can go a bit more. I've had about 12 knots just out of the jib at 50%, which was quite interesting. No kids on board, but
right.
just seeing what the boat can do, it was pretty good. But for me, knowing I can depower really quickly, and obviously if you're going on a longer passage, then it's worth the legwork to get the main up. It'll give you that extra 1.5, 2 knots push maybe, but the boat doesn't feel out of balance if you don't use it. It does seem to sit quite well. Downside probably on the jib is it's so big. If you're out in space and you've got space and not tons of vessels about, it's great, but it does limit your vision. It absolutely cuts across the bow of the boat and you spend half your time. You get a bit curious, don't you, when you're blind sailing?
Yes.
Like, oh, I've got to look. I know it's only 5 seconds, but I'm going to go look. And you've got to keep walking around the sail, but it's some good power there.
Okay, that's good to know because that would definitely make, like, if you're tacking through a busy harbor or something, quite a challenge.
I would think I'd take probably 20-25% of the jib in. I would furl it in just so I've got that window underneath, just to
Okay,
have a
so
good.
for when it's furled, you can see through.
Yeah, yeah. It just takes that little bit off the bottom, and you suddenly get a window, which is quite nice.
Okay. That would work. So tell me what she's like sea wise. How does she have you been out in bigger seas?
Um, for me, probably she's a bit short to go big.
Okay.
Um, does handle it, but we found very quickly if we go above 20 miles an hour, we start to get a little bit bouncy. It will surf okay. Um, it just feels like some of the kind of maybe longer kind of monohulls that would kind of they would need that extra kind of wind to power up, but
Right.
also if they did power up, they'll cut those waves much better than this catamaran will. But within that 10 to 15, 16 miles per hour zone, that's a sweet spot and it sails really well, but it just feels like it's kind of a medium power vessel sail wise.
And how about light winds? How do you do? That big jib must help.
It does actually, it'll kind of cut across 30 off, which is pretty nice, really. So it's pretty close to kind of get that close to the wind. And even if you are very light winded and maybe you've got a bit of engine on, it'll still give you a couple more knots. Obviously, you're doing extra distance to get those knots, but if the direction's right, I'll use it, just to get there a little bit quicker.
Oh,
That's the thing with family sailing, isn't it? There's none of that kind of, oh, I'll just sit there with no wind and just see when I'll get there. It's like the kids want to get somewhere. So, so
right.
like, right, all right, get the engine on, get there. It's a bit
Fair
of fun.
enough. So while we're talking about the kids again, tell me a little bit about the interior and exterior layout and how they work for your family.
So the biggest selling feature for me was so obviously the company that went under was Prout, and it kind of spawned this new company, Broadblue. And from the Prout 38, which this mold used to be, kind of spawned the Broadblue 38. And it was kind of the meeting of a bespoke furniture company and a mold maker, a boat maker. So basically, they started to get slightly nicer interiors, and the salon space just was a massive selling point to me. Obviously, there's much sexier vessels. Initially, I quite like the kind of Fountain Peugeot, the Lavesi 40 and stuff like that. Really nice looking boats. And when you went below that price range, suddenly sexy wasn't a word that went with the boat anymore.
I know that
Um,
one.
you know, it goes. So it, but for its price range and for its saleability and all that kind of stuff, it actually had some reasonably nice aesthetics, and the layout was nicely done. It was very light. There was windows. The family can see out. Um, and also the bimini space was really, really good. That's been lightly expanded as we've gone along. So we've kind of got two enclosures with good visibility for kids. Also down below, the kids love the bunk bed, so they've got a forward bunk area, and they love that because they just love climbing everything they can. Uh, Probably like having cats on board. And then there's two doubles, and in theory there's a single, but actually it's a store cupboard, really.
Yeah, we had one of those as well.
Can't oversell that one. And then it's a reasonable galley, and also it's a kind of half up, half down galley situation. So you're not completely separate, but also so you can still talk as you're doing stuff, and you can still grab stuff, and you can pass stuff over the top. It works quite well. Maybe we're a lazy family. I'd like to say it's quite, economical.
Right, right. Family friendly. So we're talking about some of the things you love about your boat. So what else have you really found to be quite special about it that were maybe surprises?
It's much faster than I expected, which was quite a good bonus. We set ourselves up for a 26-hour sail from Ipswich to Shoreham, both UK. South Coast destinations. And yeah, we took 6 hours off it. And
Ah.
I was quite pleased with that. We did, on the other hand, end up stuck at anchor for 6 hours waiting to go in. But it's nice to know the boat can move if you need to get ahead of a storm or get away from something. I like that idea. A lot of my kind of monohull friends kind of call it a couch with a sail. So from that point of view, it can still go if it needs to. And probably for me, I have lost an engine at sea. So having two engines, there's no way I could have left the helm and pulled an engine to pieces. In fact, at the moment, I'm still very much learning about engines. So there's no way I could have done that. So kind of losing an engine in 20 knots plus was a game changer or a lifesaver, if you like, for me and the family. We were in a position where we would have ended up quite quickly on some rocks, and we didn't. So I love having two engines. I've got to say, I love two engines.
Yeah, it is just a nice thing. We discovered that two rudders was also handy when we lost one of those, but
Oh
so
no!
I get you with the redundancy. But
Yeah, two heads bonus.
oh, there you go too. Yeah. So tell me what kind of projects you've what year is the boat and what kind of, you said it was in great condition, but obviously everybody needs to make the boat right for their families. So what did you
Yeah,
do?
not everything. So it was a 2002 38 Prestige. It was, the rigging was good. A lot of stuff was good. Aesthetically, obviously, it had its bumps and scrapes and bits and bats that needed looking at. You've obviously got to give it your own stamp, make it comfortable in your own way. For us, the engines just needed a bit of love. It sat for a while. That's happened, heat exchangers, stuff like that. Tech upgrades, AIS, MFDs and things like that. Definitely, as we're planning to go to kind of busier places, windlass, that's been amazing to get that up and running again. We've put a big fat anchor on there, which I'm loving. I love that anchor. We've never dragged. Brilliant anchor. We are gonna put another 40 meters of chain because we want to go a little bit further next year. In fact, in May we've got some plans. So yeah, some little kitchen upgrades. The fridge has seen better days, stuff like that. Kind of the domestic side of the boat needs a
Right.
little bit of love as well. Other than that, there's no huge problems. They're just little quirks that we need to get out. The battery bank we're going to build for the leisure side, and we're probably going to upgrade the solar. And I think we'll be quite close to having the boat that we love very much.
Well, that's pretty wonderful. So where do you think the future is going with the boats? What are some of the boat? What are some of your plans?
We are planning to kind of, I say kind of, we are going to the Med in around May time, depending on the weather, because it's been mental this year. So around that time, we're aiming for that. We're just trying to work out Brexit and the amazing gifts it's given us in Europe.
Right.
Because we've lost that freedom now. We are now like the rats of Europe. So we've got the 3 months in, 3 months out thing to negate, and it's quite a pain. But then also our tax situation on the boat is that we used to be anywhere in Europe and be good for tax, but now we've had to get back to England within 3 years, not just Europe, all the way back to England within 3 years, or we pay our tax again on the boat. So that is a huge slap on the face. And I only just found that one out, so I'm glad I did, because we were starting to look at Turkey, going, oh, we can be there for 5 years. Wow, that's amazing, but we cannot
Right.
apply. Yeah. And of course, there's cruising tax in Croatia, cruising tax in Greece. So that's another couple of grand to look at. Do we negate that? How do we negate that? Let's stay away from certain places where we'll be boarded. You know, we've got to stay out of Algerian waters. We welcome in Morocco, but we're trying to work out the place of how do we go in Europe for 3 months, out of Europe for 3 months. We're looking at visas too, but
Right.
it's a very, very complicated way of saying we're going to the Med, isn't
Right, right.
it?
But you feel like the boat's the right one to do it. Would you trade it for any other boat, or is it the right boat for your family?
I think pretty much the size and what it can do, I'm happy with. Obviously, if I was some crazy millionaire with some spare money, I would probably buy something, you know, in the sexy bracket. But, you know, it's safe for the family. It's a good space for the family. It sails pretty well from what I know of catamarans anyway. And for single-handed sailing, it's working really well. Um, and it anchors nicely. And with the twin engines, even if you go into a tight marina or a tight docking space, it handles really well. So we've got into some really tight ones with half a meter on the nose and half a meter on the back end, and still got it in there, you know. So far, fingers crossed, it's the right boat.
Well, that's a great place to stop. So thank you so much, Ocean. This has been a really fun conversation. I think people find it really interesting.
No, it's been really nice. So, from your catamaran experience, is there anything kind of advice you might give to me before I start this crazy journey with my rugrats?
Oh, that's a fun question. No, I think you're going at it the right way. You're starting with a boat that you feel really confident in. You're taking your time to get to know it. You're not sort of biting off more than you're capable of. And I think you've chosen a really good boat that you can learn on together, kind of thing. It's a pretty. I'm a big fan of sort of having a boat that will take a few bumps and take a few errors and
Yeah.
still keep going. That it's not so sexy that if it gets a scrape you're going to feel bad. Instead, it's going to be a scrape that you're going to be able to say, hey, I learned this. So that's kind of a nice thing with an older boat.
Something could be so nice that you don't use it, you know. So we're safe there. That's good.
Yeah, but no, this has been a great conversation.